Well. Here we go. This one has been a long time coming. Throughout the years that Capcom has been so kind to grace us with Monster Hunter, many monsters have come and gone, and most of them are pretty damn good. Visually appealing and functionally enjoyable to go up against, the devs do a pretty solid job putting their ideas into practice, and they know what the community is after. But every now and then, they slip up, and they drop the ball a little bit. We've talked about the world version of Lunastra and Alatreon and all their praises and problems, but long before either of them were even a thought in the back of a designer's mind, there was another monster so reviled by the community that few dare to speak its name for fear that they may bring it back in future generations. The epitome of jank-ass hitboxes and annoying monster AI, I want to talk today about everyone's least favourite fishy friend, the Plesioth. A master of frustration, you'd be hard-pressed finding a long-time fan of the series who hasn't thrown down with Plesioth at least once throughout their monster hunting journey. Whilst not quite as constant as some other faces, it's been around for a very long time and rears its ugly head every once in a while to remind us just how good we usually have it. But enough deprecation. We haven't seen the big guy for a little while now, so perhaps tensions have eased, maybe? And I think now is the right time to ask the question, was Plesioth really that bad? For those newer hunters, welcome. You're in for a real treat here, but you may be wondering, what the hell is a Plesioth? Is it like a Lavasioth? Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much exactly what it is, but I would argue it leaves an even worse taste in the community's mouth. It's really big, it looks like a big angry fish with legs and big weird fish wings. As I said, Plesioth has been around for a long time, so how about some background and some context to see where it came from and the changes made up until its most recent appearance in Generations Ultimate. Or, I suppose, it was actually Stories 2. Anyway, welcome back to Pink Ginger's Monster Hunter History class. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's take a trip all the way back to the first generation. Monster Hunter 1 was... well, it was the Wild West of Monster Hunter, I suppose. A time of experimentation before the series had made its mark on popular culture. A time of throwing shit at the wall to see what, if anything, would stick. And many things did. Rathalos, Diablos, Fatalis, Kirin, these monsters are all from the first generation. Your classic monster types like flying wyverns, bird wyverns, elder dragons, they all made their first appearances here, but there has always been one particular monster type that continues to be largely underwhelming to this day. The Piscine Wyvern. We got Cephalos, Cephadrome, and the main man himself, Plesioth. To the best of my memory, Plesioth was found in a single zone in the desert that was basically designed just to fight it and nothing else. This big circular area was just a flat island surrounded by water, and here is where its most infamous traits would begin straight out the gate. The fight begins with Plesioth in the water. It will swim around and stop to take pot shots at you with its water beam attack at regular intervals, and sometimes T-pose dive straight across the arena, which is kind of horrific to be honest, and you had one of three options. 1, throw a sonic bomb at it and force it out of the water. 2, fish it out with a frog, which I had absolutely no idea about when I was first playing this game. Or 3, wait until the AI decided to jump out by itself. And let's just say, God help you if you didn't have sonic bombs or frogs. However it was programmed to work, Plesioth would basically just refuse to leave the water on its own, making it functionally impossible to fight it properly for the majority of the battle if you didn't have those items. Once out of the water though, it was seemingly pretty straightforward. If it decided to stay out of the water for more than like 3 seconds, that is. It had a breath attack in the form of a water beam, a sort of charge where it would flop onto the ground and wriggle towards you, a hip check, and a tail swing attack. Sounds pretty standard, right? Well, if there's anything the first generation of Monster Hunter is known for, it's a lot of jank. Plesioth is the poster child for wildly inaccurate hitboxes on its attacks, and this, coupled with just how big it is, made for an experience that was really annoying at best. Its tail swings would hit you when you were clearly nowhere near its model, and its vortex hip check is one of the most infamous and long-running memes the fandom has at its disposal, because it felt like it hit you even if you were standing behind Plesioth halfway across the arena. And before we get to Gen 2, allow me to just rattle off a few little additional tidbits for your enjoyment. Sometimes it will just disappear from the zone and I have absolutely no idea where it goes. Other times the sonic bombs just don't work and it stays in the water, and if somehow you manage to land the killing blow while it's in the water with a ranged weapon or something, it won't jump out of the water as it dies, it'll just die and float there with no way to carve it, taunting you for being so dumb. So that's the first generation Plesioth experience. Are we having fun yet? The second generation Plesioth is pretty much the same as the first because, well, the second gen is sort of built on top of the first in general, so that makes sense, I think. It feels like its AI is a little more forgiving as it leaves and stays out of the water for a bit longer, but it's still a pain in the ass and its hitboxes are still all over the place. So overall, no really notable changes, I would say. Now, the third generation is what I would argue is the beginning of Plesioth's redemption arc. And frankly, it even has moments where it's, dare I say, fun. The main reason for this is the elimination of the most annoying aspect of Plesioth, and that is it just chilling in the water the whole time. Because guess what? You can go and chill in the water the whole time too. With the addition of underwater combat in Tri and then Plesioth in 3 Ultimate, we were given our best iteration of the fight to this day. Plesioth doesn't hit as hard because it's lower on the power scale than before, which is perfectly fine by me. Its hitboxes are fixed for the most part, as the hip check no longer hits behind it, and its tailspin animation has been changed along with the other wyverns like Rathalos and Diablos as it swings it low to the ground, and the ability to take it on in the water adds a nice layer of depth that expands the fight beyond just water beams and hip checks. Overall, I'd say Plesioth is the single returning monster to have the biggest glow up in Generation 3, and it's a real shame we haven't experienced it in the same light since. Gen 4, specifically the Generations games, were the last time we saw Plesioth in the main series, and after all of Capcom's experience cramming this guy into as many rosters as they could reasonably get away with, I'd say they finally got it to a comfortable middle ground. It's not terribly hard or impactful on your experience, but it is a lot more bearable to deal with. Mainly showing up in the Misty Peaks this time around, Plesioth spends a minimal amount of time in the water now, jumping out to fight you after 1 or 2 water beams. It's also got some new tech here as well, as it swings its head when using the water beam when it's enraged, charges up a hip check to deal more damage with it, inflicts water blight if it hits you just after it leaves the water, and it can also put you to sleep if it bites you. Which is a very bizarre change to make, but hey, whatever. I didn't design it. And well, that's it for Plesioth's main appearances. It does show up in a couple of spin-offs, being in Stories 2 where they even leaned into the hip check meme by giving it a move called the Hyperspace Tackle, which could hit your whole party without making any contact. And in Monster Hunter Online, it was this weird sort of raid battle where you would ride around on a little boat with a cannon to fight it. It also had a few variations along the way with a green subspecies, the hardcore and zenith versions in Frontier, and the sea brim and whitewater special species in Monster Hunter Explore. And so that's everything you need to know about Plesioth. Its move patterns, its design, and its problems. I think the disdain for the monster comes from all of these aspects sort of mushed together to make one big problem, and that is that it's just not fun. Or more accurately, it wasn't fun. Its attacks being little more than a breath attack, a tailspin, and a hip check are honestly not that much different than the original monsters, but the fact that its hitboxes were just so broken meant that this spamming style of combat was all the more infuriating back in the old days. Couple this with what I think is a pretty unremarkable design given it's little more than a big angry fish with legs and wings, and you get a monster that was just doomed to fail from the beginning. So we hear Plesioth getting a lot of hate, and to a degree it's warranted. It does really suck in the first 2 generations, but I never hear anyone talk about how much better it got. As of Gen 3, the hitboxes were fixed, and you could chase it into the water, so it would seem that its biggest flaws were addressed all in one go. In my opinion anyway. It is known that I enjoy underwater combat, but it is also known that many people do not, so perhaps being able to pursue it isn't so much a plus for those people. The removal of this feature was compensated for by giving it new tech, and now it's a pretty solid middle-of-the-road monster that gives you some gear with the ever-vanishing water element. Come to think of it, its bad reputation is probably beneficial for the series as a whole. No, really, think about it. It was so awful in the first 2 gens that it made most other monsters excellent by comparison. All in all, there's few things you'd rather verse less than a Gen 1 Plesioth, but I'd sooner verse a Gen 3 Plesioth than take on, like, Zora Magdaros or something. You know what I'm saying? And so, what's the answer to our question? What's the answer to, was Plesioth really that bad? I think that, yeah, it was really that bad. It began life as a completely miserable thing to fight, and I guess first impressions do last. As years went on and we all grew, so did Plesioth, and it got better. It's honestly still a pretty unremarkable monster, but my girlfriend told me it's okay to be average sometimes. As of its most recent appearance, Plesioth is not really that bad. Will we see it again in the future? I'm actually not sure. It feels like Duratotus has sort of taken its spot as the water element Piscine Wyvern moving forwards, but I suppose we will have to wait and see what the future holds. Thanks for watching the video, guys. This one was bouncing around my head for a while now, so I'm glad I finally have it released. Let me know your thoughts on Plesioth in the comments down below. If you liked the video, give it a like, and why not share it with a friend if you think they'll like it too. More videos are on their way, so stay tuned. Look after yourselves, I'll catch you on the next one. See you later.